Here's your last chance to take a look at it before we put the stain. Actually, we're not putting any stain on it. It's just going to be a clear lacquer. It's really, really pretty. I'm really happy with it. Got the newspaper in there so it doesn't have overspray inside. Just really a pretty guitar. Here's what she looks like after about 4 or 5 coats of sanding sealer. Really starting to pop. You can see that the curl in the wood is really starting to show really well, and it just couldn't be better. It's really very, very nice. Just a real pretty wood. And you, like I said, you get it out in the sun, and this I don't know what you call that, but the curl that's in the ribbon effect that's in the wood really just kind of winks at you. It comes and goes. It's hard to explain till you see it in the. I don't think it'll do it in here, but in the sun it sure does. Maybe you can see the design change a little bit in here. But it's really, and you can see the color's gotten richer, darker with the finish on there. It's just beautiful wood. Going to be a great guitar. We're going to give it a light sanding with 400, and then we're going to apply some more of the sanding sealer. I've been putting lacquer sanding sealer on here, and I put 4 applications on it the first day, sanded it off as much as possible, put 4 more applications on it the next day. It's been 24 hours, and I'm sanding it off again. I just got started, but it's really looking beautiful. It's going to be gorgeous. The one thing that I've always had trouble with the Padauk is filling the grain. And I've tried grain fillers, and if somebody really knows a really good grain filler, I'm all ears, because I've tried them all. I've tried a bunch of them, and I got to be honest, it's either just that I don't know how to do it, or those things don't work. Because I have never had any luck with grain fillers. They've either caused some other problem, or they just didn't work. So I don't even use them. I'm just putting the sanding sealer on here and going over it, and it's going to take a lot of time to get these pores filled. It just is what it is. I know I'm working extra hard because I know other people aren't working this hard doing this, but it'll be beautiful when it's done, but it's just going to take a lot of work to get it done. Still sanding. Still sanding. Basically, I'm sanding all of the lacquer sanding sealer back off. You can see how it's turning kind of a pink color there, and that's because I'm down to that red wood. And I am just trying to get the holes filled. You can still see there's still holes there. You can probably see those little white specks. Pain in the neck. Now, those white specks turn clear when you put the lacquer back over it, because they're just lacquer is all they are, but it's aggravating to have to keep sanding so much. And like I said before, I have never found a pore sealer that works worth a darn. I've tried a bunch of different ones, and every single one I've tried is either just didn't stay in the pores, or turned it a weird color, or just some problem. I've never had any of it work where I would go, yeah, that is the way I want to do it. I've never had that reaction. If you have a trick for a pore filler, or some kind of a sealer to seal these grain lines, I'd be interested in hearing it. It's time to get started making the neck for this guitar. Got a nice piece of mahogany here. There's a slight flaw in the wood right here. It goes in this direction, and it does come through all the way. You can see it. I like this. This is a perfect neck piece in my opinion, at least for one side, because this grain comes down like this, and that'll make that neck joint stronger right here. It looks like that we'll be able to miss that little flaw just by going, it'll go right over the top. And if it does show up in the top of the peg head at all, well, then we'll have a veneer or something covering it anyway, so it won't be a big deal. But that way we're using, making the best use out of our piece of wood. And it's going to be a multi-piece neck. I'm going to put mahogany on both sides as the thick piece, and then we'll have some very thin decorative pieces down the middle for strength and for looks. So let's get started. I just use the pattern as my marking the rough points, then I connect them with a straight edge. Looks like a nice profile, and we'll need to make another one of those. And ordinarily people would turn it around and flop it a different way, and I might do that here. Like ordinarily people would do it like this to save the most of the wood, and then you just have this little piece in the middle that's waste. But I kind of like the way this grain comes kind of straight and then drops off. And I think that that's going to be stronger, so I'm tempted to just go ahead and do it again. There's not that much more waste. Actually, there may not even be as much waste just doing it this way. In fact, I think there might be less waste. So I'm going to go ahead and do it this way and see how that works. I think that looks good, and I really do like the way the grain works in that. So, and we missed the flaw, I believe. The flaw goes a little deeper on this side, so there's a chance it may show up just a little bit on that piece there, but not bad. Everything else looks really good, so let's just get that cut out. Just for the record, ordinarily I would have glued this up in one large block and cut it out, all the decorative strips and everything. The only really reason I didn't do that was that the piece of board I started with had this unique grain in it, and I wanted to make use of that grain and make it work with the strength of this neck, and I really think that that's going to make this neck that much stronger. So I just did it the long way. I'm cutting out individual pieces, glue them all together. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I can lay them on a flat surface like this, clamp them all together, no big deal. It's 6 1/2, half a dozen in the other. A little bit more cutting this way because I'm having to cut out the same pattern a couple of more times. But otherwise it's really not much different. So, for all of you out there going, man, you're doing that the hard way, you're right, I am. Plans change even more, and this would have even, it would have even more difficult to glue this up in one single block. And here's the reason why. This wood is narrower than what I normally start off with. This is only 3/4 of an inch. And I normally start off with 1 full inch, and then I put some decorative strips down between it, which gives me my full width of the neck. But when I put the decorative strips in here between these 3/4 inches, it just doesn't, I'd have to make the decorative strips really wide, and then they don't look as nice to me. So what I did was I made a third piece of mahogany, and I cut this with the grain going a different direction. And what I'm going to do is cut about a 3/16 inch strip of mahogany, 2 of them out of this, and glue that to the insides of those other strips, and then I'll put the decorative strips in between this. It just means that it's going to be even a more multi-piece neck. You really won't hardly see this piece at all, and it'll even add strength to the mahogany that's already there because the grain goes a different direction on this. Anyway, you'll see it when we get it glued up, you'll understand. So here we go. I'll save this piece down the road for use on another neck someday. These two pieces will be laminated inside of the pieces we already have. Then we'll put the decorative strips in between these. I've decided I'm going to cut this maple strip even thinner. It'll have two really thin maple strips. That'll just make it look cool, I think. Having those two really thin maple accent strips is going to look really cool, and we'll have something dark down the middle yet, and it may be walnut or something else. Well, every time you do this kind of thing, you have to have a glue up, and so here it comes. We're going to do a glue up. I think that's all the damage I can do to it, so we're going to let that set up, and we'll make a guitar neck out of that eventually. Well, I took the clamps off the neck. I ran this through the joiner to get it good and flat and square, and then I sanded the top of this just on the belt sander here, just holding it down flat and leveling that off. We got her nice and squared off there, so everything should be good to go. Got this surface, and this surface are all good and square. The rest of it all has to be hand shaped anyway. Here's the current state of the neck. You can see that it's just a glued up block more or less, and the bottom side is still real rough because that's all got to be hand shaped. But the top is fairly smooth. There's a little bit of a defect right there that's just a scratch from the sawing and stuff that we can take out later if we need to. The veneer is going to cover this whole area, so I don't think that's a big deal. We're going to add some wings on here now so that we can make the neck, you know, the peg head the full size. So that's what we're going to do now, and I'm going to do that in my vise, which is right here. Just trying to get most of the glue off of here because I don't want a lot of squeeze out again. Now we can just lay these down like so in this vise, because the two poles there will keep it flat on the bottom. I do it this way quite often whenever I've got to glue up. Keep everything flat to the bottom there, and then we can just tighten her up. That should be good. Well, friends, I just wanted to give you a current status of where we're at on the guitar as we're ready to call this particular video to a close. We've got the body. See how pretty that wood is? It's hard to beat the prettiness of this kind of wood. This Padauk is so beautiful. And Anyway, and you can see the decorative strips down the back, and the curl is starting to pop now in the finish on the binding. So, and of course the armrest and the little panel on the end, it's really looking nice. The curl in that panel looks cool too, you know, so I don't know how well that's all showing up there on the screen. But this is only a sanding sealer that's on here. And this is the way I do it is I put about 4 to 6 coats, let it set a couple days, sand that off, put another 4 to 6 coats, and that's where we're at now. So we got the next 4 to 6 coats on here, and about ready to sand this back off. But I wanted to show it to you what it looks like to give you a good idea what it's going to look like when it's totally finished. Of course, the actual lacquer will even be a little brighter, a little shinier than that. So it's going to look really nice. Now here's where I want your help. You can participate. And of course, when the customer participates after watching the video, his vote weighs a lot more than the rest of yours, but you get to vote anyway. So let's see here. What do we want to do for the fretboard? Now I think I'm going to put a Paduke bridge on here. I'm not sure about that. I've got 3 choices. I could put Paduke, rosewood that I could build myself, or ebony that I would buy. I might have enough ebony to make a bridge. I can't remember. But either way, we could put ebony, rosewood, or Paduke bridge. I'm really leaning toward the Paduke because of this. I know Paduke is very resonant. I know it would make a good sounding bridge. Now here's the difference. We could put a rosewood fingerboard on this. Then I would probably want the rosewood bridge if I did that. Now this rosewood looks kind of dull colored to me. It came from our famous Stumac, but it doesn't look like the prettiest piece of rosewood in the world, although it's not bad. Let's go ahead and oil it and see what it will look like. It's hard to tell what they look like in this raw form. So I'll put a little oil on here and see what it looks like. It's definitely a grayer looking rosewood than I normally see. I was hoping for the bright, you know, kind of a reddish, brownish rosewood. Though it's not bad. It's a pretty, you know, you can see once you get the oil on there, it looks a lot better. So we could have a rosewood fingerboard, or we could have an ebony fingerboard. And then we have the combination of the different bridges. So why don't you put in the comments what you think would make the nicest looking combination there. I don't have a bridge to lay there right. Well, yeah, I do. I have an ebony bridge. I don't have any rosewood, I don't think. I have some pre-made ebony bridges, it looks like. So we have this. This ebony is not real black. It's almost a rosewood color in a way. But anyway, we could go that route, which would be kind of standard, which is the black. Of course, we could potentially put a rosewood and a black, or a rosewood and a rosewood, or a rosewood and a Paduke. So, I probably have enough Paduke to make the fingerboard out of Paduke, but making the fingerboard from scratch is a ton of extra work, which I don't really think the customer would want to pay for that. And I don't really want to, I hate to use the word waste, but I hate to waste that Paduke on the fingerboard. The fingerboard doesn't give you that much sound, you know, it gives you a little bit of looks, but it doesn't give you much sound. And that Paduke is such a good sound producing wood, I want to save it for the backs and sides. So, I don't think we're going to do a Paduke fingerboard, but we could do ebony or rosewood and then a combination of bridges. So here's your chance. Vote now. And like I said, it probably won't matter how everybody votes. If the customer votes differently, we'll probably go with what the customer says. Thanks for watching.